Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Summon Player 2. My name is Amanda, and today I am here with my boyfriend, Joe.
Hi.
Now, just because Joe's my boyfriend, don't think that I'm not going to bust him about how much he loves Dark Souls.
Oh, I'm hoping it's gonna be relentless. Honestly,
The game that he decided to pick was Dark Souls 2.
yes.
Could you just tell me a bit about how you first got into this series?
I first got into this series through Dark Souls One, and that was on Xbox. Then I went away for school and took the PS3 that you got for me to school with me, and I wanted to actually get into this game and break through the wall that is Dark Souls. And what I mean by breaking through the wall, getting past your first point of being completely stuck. Breaking through the wall has a bunch of different meanings. You know, in marathon running, it's that point where you feel like you can't run anymore and you kind of like push yourself through. In this, it's just getting past a spot that you like, where another person would just stop playing the game. This is like I wanna beat whatever it is, and in my case, it was a boss in Dark Souls One. When I left, got it for PlayStation, started playing it, beat said boss, and was in ever since.
I think it's important to mention for anybody who's never played Dark Souls before or who doesn't really know a lot about it that Dark Souls is a pretty tough game. You can't just go in button mashing.
No.
From what I played of it, and I didn't actually beat the game, I've been going through it slowly because I do get frustrated, I'll admit. You kind of have to pay attention to the attack patterns of every opponent, and you kind of have to take your time. You have to be patient sometimes just to figure out how you're going to proceed.
Yeah, and I think it's that patience that kind of turns some people off.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And I kind of felt that way a couple times when I first tried playing. I was by myself at the time, so I didn't have anybody with me who really knew much about it, and I really could not break through the wall. I got to the first boss, I instantly died, and I stopped. You really have to work at it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I really like about the game. Or at least it's what got me to keep going. Like this kind of having to work for it, and nothing's really handed to you, from the story to any kind of boss fight, and like small enemies in the starting area, if you're not paying attention, can still gang up on you and kill you. And you could be at like level 100, you could be at like level 90 plus, no matter where you are, what you're doing, you're still always on your toes with Dark Souls, and that's what I really really like about it so far.
Yeah, it seems like it presents a challenge no matter how far you've advanced in the game.
Mm.
Now, why did you pick Dark Souls 2 for this episode?
I picked Dark Souls 2 for kind of two reasons. One, I've been playing it the most so far. I haven't beaten the game yet, so I'm trying to work my way through it. And the second is I really like the animation in Dark Souls 2. By the animation, I mean the animation of your character. You really feel like they did a very good job of making your character seem like they're in a heavy suit of armor, instead of, in, for example, Skyrim, where you're not necessarily seeing your character the entire time. You're just looking at the world, so you don't really have the feeling that you're weighed down by really much of anything. The way that your armor in Dark Souls can hinder your movement, or just you look out of breath, all the time. Your character is making like really over exaggerated kind of breathing motions, but it makes sense because you're like, the way that I play, I'm more of a kind of a tank character. So I'm in heavy armor all the time, and it makes sense to me that the animation would be so like I said, over exaggerated, because you're in you're in heavy things. Your head is constantly like trapped inside of like this helmet that it like basically never take off. So that was really what drew me into Dark Souls 2.
And another thing I like about both games really is the atmosphere. You have some parts of both games that are very similar, that sections that are kind of designed off of each other, but you have new areas in the second game that you didn't have in the first that are really cool to explore. One thing about Dark Souls that I always think of when I play it is that you just get this sense of isolation and just this feeling that your character is really just alone, even if they have people that they talk to throughout the game.
Yeah, and I think that's more prevalent in 2 compared to 1. But I don't come across the NPC characters as much. There were recurring characters in Dark Souls 1. Solaire being one of them, Sigmire. Well, those are the two that you'd run into the most. You saw those characters throughout the game, and as you get farther and farther into the game, they change. They're a little bit less of what you knew when you first saw them or when you first came across them, and that kind of to me brought the whole, like you said, the whole sense of loneliness really to the forefront.
A lot of the characters, you don't know what's going to happen with them. You don't know if they're really who they say they are,
Mm.
and just the creepy laughter in the game. It's like everybody has an evil laugh. It just makes you very mistrustful of anybody that you come across.
Yeah, and that's also more prevalent in Dark Souls 1. The punctuating each sentence or capping off each sentence with a laugh is way more present in Dark Souls 1 than it is in 2.
So another question that I have is, I already know that you are an RPG fan like me,
Mm.
but Dark Souls, I would say, is a type of RPG that you have to be a specific type of person for. And the question I wanted to ask is, what about you makes this game right for you?
I think what makes it right for me is your involvement in the plot and your involvement in the story is as much as you want it to be. And I got super heavy into the lore of Dark Souls. I'm like looking up videos and like going heavy into it and like really looking up like, oh, what is this thing? Nothing's handed to you. No pieces of the story are handed to you.
Right.
You'll hear stuff from NPCs, but that's about as much as the creators of the game wanted to tell you. And that's what I really liked, the like kind of figuring it out on my own, like looking at all the item descriptions and like I said, researching different things. And I also really like, you have to like, you have, apart from figuring out the story, you have to work at the game.
Yeah, it seems like this game really changed your view on video games as a whole.
It definitely did. Like I've gone into other RPGs and been like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
Like, what setting am I on? Oh, I'm on normal. Oh, okay.
Thanks for talking to me about your love of Dark Souls.
You're welcome. I could spend the rest of the day talking about my love of Dark
Oh,
Souls.
I know.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys, for listening to Summon Player 2, and I'll see you next time.